So, first and foremost, we are back for our coffee chat, although I've got my water here today. How you doing, Brice?
Yeah, I just have my toilet paper since
Yes,
before we film this, since Mr. B has come along, I can't afford tissue anymore. So it's toilet paper
I've got the same here with mine. It's hysterical. Yeah. So
good. How are you, Catherine?
I'm really good. I've had an up and down few weeks. I've had I think quite a few people on my channel know my daughter had quite bad football injury. So trying to sort that out, and obviously being aware of what's going on in the medical and in hospitals, making sure that any treatment is not going to be compromised by other things. So, and I think I think we've had a good chat before, and I'm so pleased I've got you to chat to. I think what's coming up is we all talk about energy shifting and going through things. And I've had a lot of realizations over the last couple of months. I've been doing your 30-day challenge. I've been doing it my own way, which we're going to talk about. So I'm generally really good, but I've had a lot of realizations that I've had to process over the last month or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so important to talk about because I've said this, before we started filming, we kind of talked about, talking about what you and I have been doing all these years before YouTube. And I keep telling people that as long as you have a body to work with, you're never done. There's always going to be stuff that's going to come up for you to work through. And that's what I wanted to express to the 30-day challenge is even though 30 days are done, the challenge isn't done because it's the whole life of practice of moving through the triggers and moving through the resistance and moving through the ego, which the ego is the whole point of the ego is to give you that resistance. It's to be the weight training of your life. It's to be the uphill battle that gives you clarity. It's like our friend Cindy from Sacred Garden Yoga. I love it. She says, without suffering, there would be no mystic. Because without suffering, you don't start questioning things until you find yourself suffering. I always say, you look at the main shala in India, at KPJY, all those people with those beautiful practices in there wouldn't be there if they weren't suffering.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have stumbled. Listen, there are other exercises that are way more fun than putting your legs behind your head, right? Like you do that because you want to know why. Why is this necessary? Why is this pain necessary? What is the point of life? Why are we here? What is the point of the struggle? And those questions, because there's suffering there, because there's friction offered, those questions arise. And when those questions arise, that's when you start to stumble upon it's through the pain that you find the beauty in life because we're polarity, right? You can't see your own light before you see your own darkness.
And when you really understand that, the thing I love, I've done a couple of really good, I just not really good, but I'm really saying really good. But I've had some lovely chats with Guru Dev, a lovely yogi on Desare on my channel. And when you stop resisting, it's all about letting go of the resistance to all of it. Resistance is needed, but your attitude to that resistance is the deciding factor. Because when you realize, and it's all very well as saying that we've all chosen to be here at this time, and then criticizing other people that are behaving differently to us. Well, they've then chosen to be here at this time and we've chosen to be here with them. So it's this resistance and this expectation that I think causes the struggle, not the struggle itself, if that makes sense. And both have been on this journey for so long. So we were chatting about what our day jobs have been for years and years and years before we ever even contemplated being on YouTube. And what's been beautiful is we've both come back a lot to that passions, those passions. We've never lost them, but we've been devoting even more time back to it over the last few months. And it feels so on purpose. And one of the things in my talk with Dr. Christiane Northrop that I did this week that really hit home with me, because she was explaining in her latest project, which is amazing, that they had a traitor in their team. And as she said, she summed up beautifully and said, you're working with God when you've got a Judas, when you come across a Judas, because it's so true, isn't it? We can sort of look at it one way in terms of saying, yes, we do attract into our lives and what's the lesson. But also part of the time when you're really on point, when you can recognize this and realize that that's part of the course and still keep going.
Todd talks about that a lot, about the initiate's path. And actually, at some point, I am going to start, I have the book somewhere, going into the old teachings of the hidden teachings of the Far East. It's a whole book series. And Todd talks to me. He's been a great coach for me, because even before YouTube, I went through a lot of spirit. My whole life, I'm just like a spirit magnet, like bruising, bleeding. We watch these paranormal shows and it's laughable, the stuff they show compared to what I've been through. And Todd always reminds me, this is the initiate's path. When you're on the initiate's path, life is not easy. And the universe is going to keep challenging you, whether that comes in the form of paranormal activity, or whether it comes in the fact that you have someone stab you in the back that you thought was a friend. The betrayal. The universe is going to keep pushing you because you chose an initiate's path. And it is, he was correct with the resistance. A lot of the resistance is self-created. And it's because we have an expectation that rarely is the reality. Absolutely. And so when we hold on to these expectations that don't meet the reality, we create resistance. And so if we can just surrender and let go and breathe, the resistance will leave and accept the reality. And that's the power of now too. It's the power of being in the now. So if most of the time people are too busy living in the past or thinking about the future, the past is done. It's not coming back. It's finished. Tomorrow never comes. All you have is now. And so that's the power of now. When a spiritualist tell you to be in the now, they're telling you that because if you don't bring yourself to the now, you're going to create more resistance, because you're going to be creating expectations for the future that aren't going to be met. Right? And so, and Patanjali says this in the sutras. He says future pain, future suffering can be avoided. Once you know this, it can be avoided. And yeah, as Catherine is saying, like, even though I teach this, you teach this, we teach this, we've done that, I've done this for 16 years, I'm still learning. I'm still catching myself getting frustrated at certain things, or getting mad because something didn't happen the way that I thought it was going to happen. But your thoughts aren't real. They're just thoughts, and that also surrenders you to faith as well, where you learn to have faith that the universe has never abandoned you. The universe is always working for your highest good, even if it doesn't feel like it, The
important thing. And I think what we've seen so much in the reaction that everyone, the community that we've been part of, which in general has been absolutely amazing to have these group of people coming together, whether you like the Truther community or the Awake or the I love to think about it as the still searching for
questioning
group of us, just still being curious, maintaining the curiosity, the intelligence to keep questioning things. And by intelligent, I'm talking not just about intellectual, but emotional and spiritual intelligence. And I think what's so lovely about it is you've got to really be passionate about enjoying the journey. And what you and I are so passionate about when we're working with clients one-on-one or with groups or and just doing our own inner work is we're so passionate about what we're learning, because we can see that the results really come into action when you do practice what you preach. So, when I'm working with an animal and they're human, it's such consistent messages. This is when you know that it's really on point, because the messages and the things that work really are very consistent. And when you put that into place and you are consistent with it, it can be very, very appealing to the human sort of mentality to want quick fame, fast results, things. But actually, it's like the tortoise and the hare. The consistency, the slow, steady working on yourself is so, so important, and does reap the results in the end.
Absolutely, because it's a whole life. And that's the beautiful thing about my lineage, the Ashtanga lineage, is you can't go fast.
Yeah.
If you go fast, you're going to literally break something. And the injury sometimes is a teacher. And, we talk about, so I've mentioned this on my channel. My birthday is coming up in February, and I always start to get, ever since I was like in my late 20s, I started to have like real issues with my birthday, like real issues. And I'm going to be 40 this February. And I think growing up, even though I never wanted the traditional life that I was taught to have, getting close to 40 now, one of my resistance is I thought by 40 I would have kids. I thought I would not. And this happened to me once in India right before my birthday, where I started to have like this massive like panic attack. Like depression, crying at night. And I remember this one time in India, I was in the shala and I saw my peripheral vision, the famous wall, the orange wall that everybody wants to, it's very, that's famous pictures of the gurus. And I kind of had this prativa, which is a Sanskrit word for this flash of illumination, where it was like, okay, no, you don't have what you thought you were going to have. But holy shit, look at what life is, the reality of your life.
Mm.
You've traveled the world multiple times. You are in the most exclusive yoga school that is so hard to get into, and you got in. And you are not only in, but you've been authorized to teach from the school. So I think sometimes when we're met with that resistance, because for me, and I'm feeling it coming up again because I'm getting close to 40, this oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. I always wanted a kid and I don't have a kid. You have to, even though that expectation still offers that resistance, what can that resistance show you if you really settle into it? Well, it's shown me that I might not have a child yet. I still have a period that's very functioning once a month. So obviously there's still a chance. And look at the life that I've gotten to live. I've gotten to do all these really amazing things. And I've learned so much about myself in the process as the, Atlantean Georgia girl that grew up in an upper middle class family that went to private schools and country clubs. I was expected to have one sort of life, but I've gone and done something completely different. And what have I learned about me in that journey? What I've learned is that I'm so much more than just this life. Like Catherine is so much more than just Catherine Edwards. That's just the expression of this one life. And so sometimes if we understand what that resistance is, we can release it more when we understand all it's there is to show you something. It's to strike a match to show you something. That is sometimes the reality is actually cooler than the expectation. Does that make sense?
So often, I mean, it's so often, we can think we want something because we've been programmed. Everyone who's watching this knows all about the mass formation psychosis. We know that we've been programmed since birth. Doesn't matter how awake you are, we're all still running programs. We always still will whilst we're in this human vessel. However, the more that you're aware of those you are, but so many of the programs, I mean, when I'm working with people, it's so difficult for adults when they sit there to say, what do you really want, to talk about it out of material possession wise, because so many people have had to, like, if you ask a lot of adults, what are you really passionate about? It can be really hard for them to get to that place because it's so long since they've been able to operate from that place. But if you ask a child, it will come like this, a young child straight away. And then it will change the next day for them as they move on. And there's no resistance to its changing. A child doesn't resist letting go of one thing and getting onto another one because it's all just part of their natural evolution. And then something happens at different ages for us all, where some sort of trauma puts in a resistance to that. And I think experimenting with these different things and really seeing, I was speaking to some of the people that I'm working with in a coaching group at the moment, the most wonderful, wonderful group of people. Honestly, they are all amazing. And what we were looking at is so much of the time we sort of think we want to be working on this thing. Your challenge has raised it. Your 30-day challenge has raised it for a lot of us in terms of we've got this list of what we want to do. And we're so programmed to thinking we've got to tick everything off the list, otherwise we've failed. But actually, some of the main stuff that we can get out of it is so individual for every single person. Well, either is it resistance or is it real circumstances in your life which are changing? And if so, are those circumstances that are stopping you, say, exercising for an hour each morning? Perhaps those circumstances are actually what you've got to be most grateful for.
Yeah, and that's so
like looking after babies and things like that.
Yes.
Looking after babies, you're not going to be able to stick to that routine. But at this stage in your life, that might be the biggest gift ever for you. So don't compare that with that.
No, and that's what I put on the last day of the challenge. We use exercise. There's literal friction in exercise. It's called sweat. You feel it. It's very real. It's there. But that is just showing you what friction is. It pulls up issues too, yes, of course. But that divorce you went through, that death of a parent you went through, that having a miscarriage, losing your job, that's also friction.
Mm.
And sometimes, and I put in the last part of the challenge, like I think I used the example of divorce for people who've gone through divorce. What was it you learned from that experience, and what liberated you through that experience? What were you able to face because of the darkness? And so you're right, Catherine, like depending on, and that's why I use so many different modalities of exercise anyway, because it's really not even about the workout. The workout's just a tool. It's just a tool. It's a necessary tool, and it does bring health, but it's just I'm not your daughter's soccer coach looking for athletes. I'm not even watching you exercise. I'm just saying, okay, interesting. You got sweaty, you got pissed off. Why? Now sit journal. Why? Because all it was a person on your YouTube showing you how to like lift your leg a certain way. What was it about that triggered something, that made something come up in you that now you have the power to address? And if you lean into it, what resistance was that? Because if you lean into that, a whole world of possibilities opens up for you, and there's a releasing, and that's the one thing I love about the using the body as a spiritual. When you talk about letting go, especially when it comes to Ashtanga, if you can't get your leg behind your head right now, guess what? You can't get your leg behind your head, and you're going to have to surrender to that, and you're going to have to give up that resistance and give that time and space it needs to get to that point, right? Like for your daughter who's a professional athlete, you know, I'm sure she's had to learn so much surrender in her journey.
Oh, so much, and so much that's, you know, out of your control as well. You know, like you get a really bad tackle and a really bad injury, and suddenly all your plans for that season are out. So then you change plans and you deal with what's thrown you next, and you accept it. And she is absolutely amazing. I've never met anyone just so good in terms of seeing the positive everything and accepting it, and then course correcting as you need to. And I think this is the beauty. We can get so stuck in our life without realizing that actually how lucky we are to actually have these different choices. You know, there's so many people across the globe that couldn't even begin to have the luxury of even looking at working through challenges like this. And I had a refugee who was over here and doing some work in the neighborhood, and he found it really hard to believe how many animals we've got. I never use the word pets, but you know what he means in terms of animals that aren't working animals, that are purely we're sharing our life with for pleasure, because in so many areas of the world that is a complete luxury. You know, there's most families across the globe haven't got enough money or time to actually look after their humans in their life, left alone to look after four-legged friends that are purely there for mutual benefit and you know, pleasure. And you just think, wow, what an absolute luxury to be in a position for anyone that's got a dog or cat in their life, let alone anything else, you know.
Well, look at that. With when you and I both have dogs that were rescued from other situations. Robbie just
that's so cute.
Well, I look at my dog, Robbie, that Catherine knows, and Robbie is the biggest crush on Catherine, but you know, he was born on the streets. He was straight up born on the streets. He was rescued as a small puppy, and we've seen his instincts. You know, I grew up with a ton of dogs. My dad was a vet, but I grew up with domesticated dogs.
Yeah.
I've seen the difference between my dog and the dogs I had growing up, because he is part wild. Yeah. He's a street dog. But in saying he's part wild, he totally has adapted to living in the middle of a city. And I've seen it with the older dogs. I've brought 6 dogs back from India myself that live with other people now, but I saw them go from never coming inside a house at all, not knowing what inside was, to now wearing clothes.
Yeah.
No, and it's so funny. Yeah, no, for anybody that thinks that pets are here to serve us, literally, I serve my dog.
Completely. And with my dogs, with my little ones in the back there and everything, they're very different, even though they're sisters, they're very, very different personalities. But what I love about them is, like, now, you know, because again, they've been street dogs in Romania. The Romanian winters are so harsh for them. So bless her, Indy, she knows she doesn't want to go out and get wet when it's wet. Was my Labradors, well, one of them was a rescue, but they were both born in houses. not on the street, but she doesn't want to, because when you've been freezing to death and sopping wet, your survival instincts know that unless you have to go out to eat right then to survive, you don't go out and get wet, because there's nowhere for you to go and warm up. So she is grateful. She is so grateful to be in by the fire and things like this. And what they're looking at, she's not looking at what else have I got. She's just really grateful for what she's got now, and it's just beautiful to see. And it's beautiful to see allowing them to make choices in your life, like we were just speaking before we came on air, because Todd is absolutely amazing with Ravi's diet, and is now on, you know, sort of gone through the diet course that I do for dogs, and there's a really good reason for it. But when you start doing that and you see their choices and you see how they're responding and how they thrive, it's so rewarding. And then you're such an advocate for the doshas and understanding how your own body responds to the food and the drink, not what you're having, but when you're having it, etc. When you start tuning in at this level with your animal and yourself, you learn so much from each other. It's just fascinating, isn't it?
Oh, it totally is. And you know what? So one thing that I love about Ravi, but Ravi's not a cuddler. He's not, when he was a puppy, I could pick him up and force him to cuddle with me, but now I can't. But when he gets cold at night, and we live in a relatively warm area, I mean, I wanted to wear winter clothes, but I've got the air conditioning and the fan on because it's not super cold here. But he'll just, the way he like snuggles up to you for warmth, because they learn that in the puppy pile. But just seeing how the animals do adapt to their environment, they do adapt to what's been presented to them. I really doubt that Ravi or any of the dogs that I've rescued are sitting at home now going, gee, I wonder what life's like on the street right now.
Yeah.
No, I think they're just really finding that love, and they see that warmth that the human gives them. And also, you know, another thing about surrendering too, I said this in the beginning of the challenge, and I know your daughter's going through something like this as well. I broke my sacrum. I literally broke my ass back in 2016 in a really rough adjustment, not from Todd or from my teacher in India, from someone else. And I had a choice at that moment. Sometimes these things allow us choices. When I broke my sacrum, I could have very easily been like, that's it, I'm done, I quit. But I didn't quit. I kept going. And what happened was I ended up finding Marnie Alton's bar, which ended up changing my whole practice, because I was looking for something. My friend had suggested it to really strengthen my core to help restabilize my sacrum, because it's very hard you can't cast that, right? You can't walk around with the diaper cast on. And so I had to get creative with this obstacle. And that's what Marnie Alton says, it's not obstacles, it's puzzles. And you're the puzzle master. And because of that thing that was bad, that bad thing that happened to me, a whole new world opened up for me, because I didn't give up. I mean, there were days where I had pity parties. Most of the days I was at home crying and pissed off and mad at the person who did it. And I thought my life was over. I thought I was never going to be able to teach because I couldn't stabilize myself to help a student. But I kept going anyway, despite the pity party. I kept going, and that's how I found the bar. And again, I still, to this day, I'm a part of her website. I do her classes multiple times a week, because what she teaches opened up a different pathway of my own understanding of my body in yoga. And so all of these things that happen to us that we see as bad, it's how you perceive it. What are you gonna? So.
Yeah, so true. I broke my back in quite a nasty horse riding accident. And actually, they misdiagnosed at the time, so I didn't realise till much later how bad it was. But actually, what that did, it was perfect, because with all the herbal medicine that I work with, that I study, and the natural remedies, and the light therapy, I was like, oh, fantastic. Now, because I had had 2 young children, horses, dogs, look after, a very physical job, working with horses all day, doing therapy with them. And, you know, stopping wasn't an option for me. And I didn't need to, because I was like, well, now there's a chance to put all I've learned into practice on myself. Yeah. And it healed absolutely miraculously. And I wasn't that young at the time either. And it was fantastic, because actually it was like, okay, well, now I've got all these tools in my toolkit. Here we go.
Yeah. So, oh no, I say at 40, up on 40 years old now, I'm stronger now at 40, almost 40 than I was at 30.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was because of taking responsibility, taking for everything that's happened, because my practice taught me how to do that. If I had broken my sacrum when I was like 20, it would have been a different story than breaking it in my 30s, because I'd had all these years of practice in yoga. It was still tough. I still had the sorrow and the frustration, but I kept going. And that is what my grandfather used to say. My dad's dad, who did have a near-death experience when he was in his 40s, he died and saw what's the light and then came back again. So he had a very interesting outlook on life. And I never knew him before he had his near-death experience. I was born after that. So I always saw him as just jolly. He was like 6'5", big dude. The Watsons are big people, but he was always laughing. And he ended up doing really, really well in business. So he had he was very affluent, but he didn't fear a whole lot. And he had a very specific outlook on life. And I know it's because all of our fears can be rooted back in death. And after you've experienced death and you realize it's nothing to fear, you don't fear it anymore. So what do you have to lose? But he used to say to us all the time when we were kids, to his grandkids, there is nothing that you can control. You may think you have control over things, but the only thing that's in your control is how you react to things.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't that so relevant with what everyone's going through now? Because we're still, anyone who's watching this, you've got this information coming in and you've got this information and you're seeing the whole world through a new pair of eyes every day. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And more bits of the jigsaw puzzle go together. And it's that fascinating balance, isn't it? Of what you can control, how much about your behavior, your self-worth is controlling your own reality. We all know people that can on paper be living in very similar circumstances, but the reality, their experience is completely different based on the way they view the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's everything, and literally everything can be taken away from you. Everything can. And so how are you going to react to it? And I've said this on my channel before, let's say we have 5-10 more years of this nonsense in the world. Can you handle that? Are you going to be able to handle that if you have 5 or 10 more years to go of what we're living through? Because none of us know when it's going to end.
Nope.
The only thing you can do is control the way you react to it. Dig deeper into yourself. I think the universe in a lot of ways has given us a wonderful opportunity, each and every human being on this planet, because there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to run to. You have to face it. So what are you really facing? You're really facing yourself.
And the fact that, we all talk about, we don't want their new normal. But the one thing we don't want to do is to go back to how things were before, because that's what got us in this mess in the first place. So if we're slipping back into old habits of before this pause button was put on our everyday lives for everyone in different shapes and forms, then what have we learned? What's the purpose? How have we grown from it? But if we can look at it and sort of say, okay, there's been an enforced pause, so what do I want to create from this? Then we can move forward collectively, because if everyone's creating at that individual level, then the whole world has to change.
Exactly. And that's what Shanti was saying too, about the whole bad stuff going out in the world we won't get into. We can go arrest everyone. They can execute whatever, do all that stuff. But it's another group's just going to pop up unless we heal ourselves first, because it's our wounds. And I was talking about the initiate's path. You can see it this way. Every freaking soul on planet Earth right now is on the initiate's path, because the universe literally pulled the plug on this planet. And every single person has been affected. Actually, probably the people who weren't affected by this were the ones that were already living in poverty. I think about the slums in India. And I've said before, the people living in the slums in India are far more spiritually evolved than I am.
And also I heard a really interesting interview about, because we all know that we've been lied to so much about the history of humanity, about the hidden cities and everything, which is something we're going to be doing some more talks about. I'm really excited about that. But, when you look at it, when great cataclysms happen, when great resets, whether they're through weather, through comets hitting the world, whatever they're for, the people that can really survive are the ones, they're not the ones living in the cities, they're the ones that are the hunter-gatherers that are out there living as nature intended, so to speak. And we talk about, there's so much awareness now about the AI agenda, but look how dependent most of us are on technology. Trust me, I'm putting myself in there. My phone died today and I was like, my God, I run my whole business from my phone. This is a disaster, because people are expecting, if you don't get back to them straight away, it's a disaster sort of thing. And actually, this is the beauty of, we all know that all of those skills, we can all communicate telepathically. We can all heal ourselves and others. We can live in harmony. Absolutely, humans can live in harmony with the earth, with the rest of nature, with all creatures, great and small, if we choose to. But this whole agenda of the AI is really just a slight extension in my world to what we've all done by being so obsessed with gadgets and things and materialistic things. And actually, the people, as you said, that are least affected by these enforced changes are the ones who are already not living in that world. No, that's not their part of their reality.
I've learned, I mean, working in the slums in India, they've taught me much more than my teachers have ever taught me, because I've seen a whole perspective you know, we talk about privilege, which I don't really believe there's privilege, because we know even in the upper echelons of society, there's pain and suffering beyond our wildest imagination. So it doesn't matter how much money's in your bank account, humans are humans. But I've seen this like acceptance. It's, you know, when these people born into poverty worse than any of us have ever. If you're watching YouTube right now, you are not living in this pot. They don't even have electricity.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and yeah, that was one of the thoughts I had the first time I went into the slums. I was like, holy shit, I'm such an asshole. Here I am worrying about the latest iPad.
Yeah.
These people literally don't have a pot to piss in. They literally go to the bathroom outside.
Yeah.
What a slap across my face that was. And what can I learn from them? And Thoth talks about this in the Emerald Tablets. Like, you're not just seeking wisdom from people like Catherine and me who have done this for a long time and studied all the text. You're also seeking it from the least among you. You know, for the ones that are living in the slums. Like, what can you learn from that? What wisdom? And every human being has that wisdom to offer you in your own perception, you know, and that's what this is all about, is coming into your own understanding of who you are, essentially, not who you are in the matrix, because that's not real. Who you are as a spirit, and that same soul. I mean, we talk a lot. I know we want to do a show on vegetarianism at some point, Catherine, but I mean, Sri Swami Satchitananda says this in his commentary on the sutras. On the sutras, when you actually get in touch with your soul, you actually feel that. You look at an animal differently.
Yeah, don't you, Pumpkin?
Yes.
Hold him up, because Pumpkin is literally like a panther. He's huge, but unfortunately you're a bit clumsy, aren't you, Pumpkin? So in a minute everything will go flying. So I'm sort of got my barriers up, because he'll walk across here and the whole lot will go flying, won't it? But he is enormous. He's my biggest baby cat.
Robbie's clumsy too. Robbie can run really fast, but he can't catch a ball for shit.
Yeah,
he slips and falls all the time. So,
I'm so grateful. I mean, I'm so lucky. I'm sitting here with the animals. I'm also very lucky to be able to have these conversations. I feel really blessed that, you know, so much is changing at the moment. And yes, as a naturally impatient person, it's not at the pace that I would choose. However, I am prepared to put my hand up and say, I'm really pleased I'm not the decision maker in this.
Yes,
because I'm not stepping up and volunteering for that role. I know my limitations.
Listen, the whole Balenciaga saga that was happening, I was looking at pictures yesterday and I was trying to eat and I could not finish eating because it was just so disturbing. And I was like, listen, there's a reason why God said, you're just going to go study yoga. we're going to put other people in charge of that department, because, you know.
And this is the thing, I think, you know, everyone who's watching this will have their own limits, their own where they want to go, sort of information wise, where it's too much for them. And that's absolutely fine, because the most important thing is you listen to yourself, because, you know, living in a state of pity doesn't do anyone any good. And there's some warriors out there that can go down the tunnels, that can do all this work. And there's every stage in between. And wherever you're at with that is absolutely fine, because you're on purpose for what, here he goes, watch out, you're on purpose for where you need to be. And the whole point is we are all meant to be playing different roles in this. So I just think that is quite an important message, because there's been so much name calling in this whole agenda, and I think that is very, very damaging to people really finding their true purpose and what their mission is at this time.
Don't project. And that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing I hope the 30-day challenge taught people, is listen to yourself, take time to work on yourself. You are the storm. You are literally lightning in a bottle. And if you learn how to work with that and understand that you are the only thing you have power over, then what that means is they can't have power over you at that point, because you took that power over yourself. Does that make sense? Like,
it's so freeing from someone that didn't realize this for a lot of years of my life, I can just say it's so freeing once you accept that. It's just like, wow, it's like a huge weight has been put down. You know, how many people feel like they've got the weight of the world on their shoulders, and actually when you can put that down, then you've got the agility and the freedom to do what you need to be doing to help your community, humanity, the world at large.
And Catherine, look at all the people in the Signal group that we are running. Holy shit.
They're
I mean,
amazing.
amazing.
Even my little group of coaching group, there's skills in that group, your Signal group, my little coaching group, the skills and the willingness and the wanting to share their knowledge, share what works for them, what doesn't. It is just
be vulnerable with each other. And it's amazing. And I just was so happy because everyone was getting it. They were like, the workout was hard this morning, but I kept going, and now I'm going to journal. I'm like, yes. And the cold showers, I told everybody, I know Catherine and I are proponent of cold therapy. There's something magical about it. And so many people are doing it now. And just these little steps, you're changing your whole world around you. When your world changes around you, it starts to vibrate out and changes everyone else. And we all do this together. And so it is amazing. I know we have a 60-day challenge coming up.
I'm so looking forward to the 60-day challenge. I've got so many ideas. I think it's beautiful how everyone's contributing. And for me, it's really shown what being part of a community can do. You know, it's when you surround yourself with the people that support you and lift you up, not in a false way, in a genuinely nurturing and caring way, makes all the difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you so much. I always feel so much better after our chats. I absolutely love it. I hope other people have got something out of this, and I'm sure we will be back next week.
Yes. Bye, guys.
And bye.